The arena lights dimmed to a single spotlight as two warriors stepped into the octagon that October night in 1992. The crowd of 20,000 held its collective breath, knowing they were about to witness something that would echo through martial arts history forever. In one corner stood Michael Jai White, the Brooklyn-born powerhouse whose fists carried the weight of 7 black belts. His massive frame cast shadows across the canvas as he shadowboxed, each movement precise as clockwork, deadly as a viper strike. The man they called the Dark Knight had demolished every opponent who dared step before him. His combination of traditional karate and street-smart boxing creating a fighting style that seemed almost supernatural. Across the octagon, Brandon Lee moved like liquid mercury, his lean frame deceptive in its power. The son of the legendary Bruce Lee carried more than just his father's name into battle that night. 27 years old and in his physical prime, Brandon had spent his entire life perfecting the art his father had revolutionized. His Jeet Kune Do flowed like water, finding its path, adapting to every situation with the philosophical depth that made the Lee family legendary. White stood 6'1" and weighed in at a solid 210 pounds of pure muscle. His background read like a martial arts encyclopedia. Shotokan karate, taekwondo, Goju-Ryu karate, Tang do, Wushu, Kobudo, and Kyokushin karate. But it was his street fighting experience in Brooklyn that gave him the edge that separated him from tournament fighters. When White threw a punch, buildings seemed to shake. Brandon, at 5'8" and 170 pounds, appeared almost fragile next to his opponent. But those who understood fighting knew that appearances meant nothing when skill met determination. His Jeet Kune Do training had been supplemented by Wing Chun, boxing, and fencing, creating a hybrid style that emphasized speed, timing, and the interception of attacks before they could fully develop. The first round began with both fighters circling like predators. White pressed forward with his signature aggressive style, throwing heavy combinations that would have flattened lesser men. His left hook whistled through the air where Brandon's head had been milliseconds before. The crowd gasped as Brandon seemed to simply vanish and reappear behind White, landing a lightning-fast sidekick to his opponent's ribs. White absorbed the blow and spun with surprising grace for a man his size, catching Brandon with a glancing right cross that sent the smaller fighter sliding backward. The power difference was immediately apparent, but so was Brandon's supernatural speed. He flowed around White's attacks like smoke, landing precise strikes to pressure points that accumulated damage despite their apparent lightness. But White's strength advantage proved decisive as he powered out of the hold and regained his feet. His face showed the first signs of genuine respect for his opponent's skills. This wasn't going to be the quick demolition job many had predicted. The middle rounds became a chess match played at superhuman speed. White would press forward with his devastating power combinations, forcing Brandon to give ground. But every retreat was calculated, every backward step part of a larger strategy. Brandon began timing White's attacks perfectly, slipping inside the bigger man's guard to land devastating body shots that slowly sapped his opponent's legendary conditioning. By round 6, both fighters showed the wear of battle. White's face bore the accumulation of dozens of precise strikes, while Brandon moved with the slight hesitation of a man who had absorbed several shots that would have hospitalized ordinary humans. The crowd was on its feet, sensing that the decisive moment was approaching. The turning point came halfway through round 7. White, sensing his window of opportunity closing as his power began to fade, launched himself forward with a combination that started with a devastating right cross and continued with a left hook that could have decapitated a smaller man. Brandon slipped the first punch by millimeters, but the hook caught him flush on the jaw, sending him stumbling backward. But instead of falling, Brandon used his momentum to launch into a spinning heel kick that caught White completely off guard. The kick landed with a sound like thunder, dropping the bigger man to one knee for the first time in the fight. The arena exploded as Brandon pressed his advantage, unleashing a combination that seemed to come from every angle at once. White's warrior heart kept him standing, but the damage was accumulating. His left eye began to swell, and his breathing became labored. Yet he continued to press forward, knowing that one clean shot could still end the fight in his favor. The final rounds became an epic of human endurance and will. White, his power diminished but his determination unbroken, began fighting with the desperation of a man who refused to accept defeat. Brandon, ahead on points but aware that one mistake could cost him everything, fought with the precision of a surgeon and the heart of a warrior. In the 8th round, White landed a crushing body shot that doubled Brandon over, then followed with an uppercut that lifted the smaller man off his feet. But somehow, impossibly, Brandon stayed conscious and continued fighting, his father's indomitable spirit flowing through his veins. The final bell rang with both men standing in the center of the octagon, battered but unbroken. The crowd rose as one, recognizing they had witnessed something transcendent. When the judges' scorecards were read, Brandon Lee had won by the narrowest of margins, his superior technique and conditioning overcoming White's raw power advantage. But in truth, both men had won something more valuable than any championship. They had proven that martial arts, at its highest level, was about more than fighting. It was about the indomitable human spirit, the refusal to surrender, and the beauty that emerges when skill meets courage in the crucible of combat. That night, Brandon Lee stepped out of his father's shadow and into his own legend, while Michael Jai White proved that power without technique could push even the most skilled fighter to their absolute limits. The fight became the standard by which all others would be measured, a perfect storm of skill, heart, and warrior spirit that reminded everyone why we fall in love with